Hello, everyone. It's time again for the SMC Journal podcast that's all about systems engineering and enterprise IT, DevOps, performance, and anything in between that we want to talk about today. Today's episode is about digital experience monitoring. What is it? Why do we care? And how is that different from anything else that we hear about in terms of digital experience? We're going to talk about that today, and we've got a special guest. I'm Scott Moore, your host. Thank you for joining us for the show today. So back in 2019, I created this slide. And let's just take a look at this for a second. From the top, everything that you're going to see inside and underneath the words digital experience is what is contained in what I have called the digital experience. Now, I made this up. In other words, I took information from the web several years ago and put this together. Now, this is back when we were still dealing with primarily the term application performance monitoring and how we get that done. So APM. Since then, the world has turned to the words observability to monitor infrastructure and highly dynamic applications, containerized applications. However, I think the overall understanding of what a digital experience is still contains these concepts. Okay, so let's start here at the top with the end user, as close to the end user as we can get, which would be either synthetic timings, where we would create some automated type of script process that runs over a period of time, gathers information from the web browser itself or from other metrics inside of the browser, the WC3 metrics, to find out about how long does it take for pages and different elements on that page to render. We put that together, we time it, and we put that out. We also have the ability to get real user traffic. We call that RUM, real user monitoring, and that is capturing information from actual sessions from users that show what their actual experience is. Same thing that you would get from synthetic timings, but under their real world conditions from their browser last mile. This can be done by inserting some JavaScript into the website that fires off when the user loads the web page, or it can be done through other means. So you have that, but if that's all you have, then you don't have the complete picture of what's creating a good or a bad digital experience. And you define good or bad based upon whatever those requirements that you have are. So if you want your users to have what you consider to be a great experience, that might mean the page needs to render within 2 seconds. 3 seconds, 1 second, whatever you've set there, that's your service level to that user, whether that's an internal service level that you're trying to achieve, say a service level objective, or you are contractually obligated to meet a service level agreement. So if it's not, let's say that we've set a time of 2 seconds for that full page to render, all third party browser pieces to be rendered with it, 2 seconds. Okay, and we measure that and it's 5 seconds. All right, we've breached that service level objective and we want to know why. If all we have is that top level, then that's all the information you get is it's slow. It's 5 seconds. The next question is obviously why. And this is where we get to the second layer down in the cake. Application discovery, tracing, and diagnostics. That's how Gartner described this tier, at least 2 or 3 years ago. Now we would probably under observability talk about metrics, traces, logs, events, and the things that make monitoring a Kubernetes deployed application possible with sidecars, with eBPF monitoring built into Linux, those type of things. But you're still looking at fundamentally the same types of things from an infrastructure perspective. You want to know the top 4 things, which are CPU, memory, disk, and network. And then all the application layer things. So I've got a bunch of icons out there for if you're doing a .NET or a Java-based application, or you're doing something in PHP, Ruby, whatever it is. And then you've got databases, different kinds of databases, open source databases like Postgres, MySQL, or commercial databases that have their own monitoring tools. All of that data information that you're gathering, whether you're getting it through Prometheus or some native monitor that comes with the product itself, that also needs to be correlated with that top tier that you're looking at. So let's say the synthetic and real user sessions are saying 5 seconds. Now you would want to look at information that come from this middle tier to understand why. Well, it appears, for example, that the database layer is being throttled somehow. Let's say that the CPU is 100% on the SQL Server database. The web server is working fine. We can eliminate that. The network has plenty of bandwidth. We're fine. So what's the problem? It turns out the database is working too hard. It doesn't have enough CPU power, or we've missed an index that's causing it to work harder. Something like that would come up. And then you would say, okay, well, let's do triage on that. Let's fix that. And you make the change, and then you look to see if that service level objective is being met again. And if it goes down to 2 seconds from your synthetic timings or your RUM data, then you're good. Okay. That bottom layer is trying to take that to the next layer, which is trying to get to a predictive way of finding and fixing these, but way before the user would ever know that there was a problem, by using machine learning algorithms, AI algorithms, and big data to look at these and notice patterns, notice anomalies when too much memory is being given but none is being taken back, when CPU queue lengths are getting above 2 for a long period of time, and certain other rules that would be taught to a machine learning algorithm would understand when these conditions start happening. I need to A, alert someone that it's happening, or B, take action, scale out, scale up, do something, and then there still may be manual intervention that happens. All of that stuff that I just described is part of making the end user's experience great. Okay. So how has that changed in the last few years? Well, now Gartner actually has a new category that they talk about called digital experience monitoring. We've also heard just about digital experience, DEX, digital experience monitoring, DEM, and we're hearing other tools about other terminologies about that. And the way that digital experience is being mentioned, and the companies that are in those categories aren't necessarily the ones that we would think about from an observability perspective, because most of the stuff I just described, you would think, well, digital experience, that's going to be your observability platforms like Splunk, Datadog, Dynatrace, App Dynamics, New Relic. Now, New Relic and these companies do have articles on digital experience, and they do play a part of that, okay? But now we have another group that is talking about digital experience in a little bit different way. And I'll give you an example. Company 1E is defining digital experience as a digital employee experience. In other words, we have always, in the performance engineering community and the observability community, been focused on making that experience for the user good based upon how well we tune the network and back-end components. And from the edge or the desktop itself of the user, well, there was not a lot of control in there. I can't help it if somebody wants to use a Raspberry Pi, a Mac M1, a server, or anything else in between, good or bad, to work on. So that local CPU I can't control. So I need to just fundamentally tune what I can, what I have the capability to tune: the database, the app layer, CDNs, getting cached elements as close to a user as possible. But now we're beginning to hear about, what about that actual last mile, that end user? What about their CPU and monitoring that? Now, that may not be something that a company like Google, we would want them to do, or a Datadog for a company. We wouldn't want them, anonymous users are not going to want to give you that information about what their machine is, nor their network connection. I can't control if somebody's using Xfinity Comcast versus Starlink versus something else, or if they're contacting me from a really bad mobile connection. When we talk about digital employee experience, it's more about corporate companies monitoring their corporate users for desktops and laptops that have been given to them to use for work purposes. And what the company wants to know is the experience of the employee good? Are they experiencing problems with, blue screens or just slowness in general? Is that problem with their experience local to just them, their office, like their home office and it's because of the VPN? Is it because they're inside of one of our satellite offices and it's just that satellite office? Or is the entire company experience a problem with this SaaS-based application that everybody uses? Think something like Salesforce. So you will hear terms about digital experience monitoring with companies like 1E, Lakeside Software, and others about digital experience monitoring, but it's more about shifting the user experience in the traditional support center left. And you'll be hearing more about Lakeside Software from me this year because I'm just going to be announcing this week that Lakeside Software is a new sponsor of the Performance Tour. So we're going to delve into this area that I'm just mentioning here. But One has an article out there that I will share about this whole digital employee experience and what it means. And they talk about the term digital friction. What is digital friction? Those are all the things that get in the way of a user having a pleasant experience. Now, sometimes that is speed and performance related. Sometimes it's because something is down on the company's back end, and other times it's just a problem with a driver that was misinstalled, software that's misinstalled, misconfigured, and some application that's just really goofy on their machine. And these types of applications like Lakeside Software, One and others would monitor those things over a period of time and find out, are there things that we can proactively do to reduce the digital friction that users are experiencing? An article that came out just last week that I want to mention is Cloudflare getting into this digital experience monitoring space. So this really surprised me because my first thought about this was, hold on a second, are you telling me that Cloudflare is getting into the observability space and they're going to compete with the Dynatraces and the Datadogs of the world? Well, not exactly. Are they going to compete with the Lakeside Softwares and 1Es of the world? Well, not exactly. As you read through the article, it's kind of something different. So I think in the market, as Gartner defines things and as these companies are defining things, terminologies like digital experience monitoring, DEM, DEX, DXP, whatever you're calling it now, there's some confusion in the market. I'm a little confused, and if I'm confused, it probably means several of you are confused about that too. So is digital experience monitoring the digital experience of a user from an observability standpoint, making the backend better, monitoring that and making it better for all of our users? Is it monitoring our corporate network and desktops? Or is it now a service like Cloudflare monitoring all of the users that use their services, like their Warp VPN and other things that they're collecting analytics on? If you put for example, a Jamstack, a static website that you produce, and I actually do this myself. If I have a static website that I put out on Cloudflare pages or Cloudflare worker sites, they're gathering website metrics for me very much like Google Analytics would do. And so you can get both and do a litmus between what does Google Analytics say is the experience of somebody download times and what does Cloudflare say. And you can see kind of how important a CDN is based on that kind of information. But it still leaves a lot of confusion out there. So in order to clarify some of this, I'm bringing on a special guest today. It's the CEO of Catchpoint, and that is Mehdi Daoudi. And I'm going to bring him on, and we're going to talk about what is all this DEM digital monitoring stuff, how does he see it, and how can we clear up some of this confusion? Let's bring him in now. Hey, Mehdi, it's an honor to have you on the SMC Journal podcast today.
Scott, I think the honor is all mine. I don't get to hang out with James Bond 503 that often, so it's my honor and pleasure, sir.
No, thank you. This show today is all about the digital experience. Like, what is digital experience monitoring? So I'm a little confused, and that's why I brought you on the
Right.
show today. I think it's important for you to establish, though, why I brought you on. Why don't you introduce yourself and Catchpoint and what you do?
Yeah, thank you, Scott. So my name is Mehdi. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Catchpoint. We're an internet performance monitoring company. We've been around for 14 years, and we basically help customers deliver better digital experience, right? So let's dive into what that is. Customer experience has been around for hundreds of thousands of years. Even dinosaurs had customer experiences, right? They ate little birds and they were happy. It, Customer experience is the interaction between a customer and a company and an organization. A digital one is a customer experience or an interaction, but that can only happen through digital medium, whether you call a voice over IP, whether you open a WhatsApp chat, whether you go on a website to purchase something or place a trade or try to book an airline trip. So the digital experience is the sum of all experiences that the customer, that you, me, even an IoT device has with the company, but only through digital means, right? No analog. This doesn't encompass going to a store. Now, some people might say, okay, omni-channel, all that good stuff.
Mhm.
So that's what digital experience is. And so in order to monitor it, you need to gather signals, right? You need to gather signals from as many places as possible that can draw a picture of what that customer experience might be. Now, customer, I just want to emphasize this, customer is today also an employee, meaning that Scott working from home is using, let's say, a G Suite product or Microsoft product. He's also trying to book a flight on Southwest. So all of those things are digital experiences. So your interaction with, let's say, a Microsoft Office suite product needs to be monitored because the employee is as important as the customer, right? You have to remember you need employees to be satisfied so they can take care of your customers, right? So it's a virtuous circle to some degree. And so you need to gather signals. And since you and I have been around this industry for since dinosaurs, there are always two methods of gathering signals when there is a passive and a proactive and active, right? So proactive is synthetic monitoring, black box monitoring, so the ability to to pretend to be a user and gather that telemetry and get like up, down, slow, fast, etc. And then you have the real user, which is like, hey, whether it's sniffing the traffic or doing real user monitoring via JavaScript, is collecting all the user traffic and then being able to paint that picture. So that's basically the high level, my high level view and definition, if you want.
Do you think that the way that Gartner and other analyst firms are now creating this category called digital experience monitoring, that they're confusing the market with the way they're defining things?
Um, so, I think we've been very good at creating categories and throwing names, observability. Even observability today means I don't know what it means, to be honest, anymore, right? It's we've added security on top of it. It's just like, and it's very bad actually, in my opinion, because we're confusing the market. And I'm
Mhm.
speaking, I'm not wearing my hat per se. I think we have to call a cat. And so, listen, I don't mind it, the fact that they're calling it digital experience monitoring, and that's what it means. But then digital experience monitoring, well, has been around for a while. There've been companies and products that have been monitoring desktop signals, CPU, memory, blue screens, crashes, etc. For a long, long time. There's some really good products out there. The challenge is, and this is where I think we get it all wrong, is we don't think about who the buyer is. So, and we have a solution as well in the employee experience or the workforce, what we call the workforce experience monitoring space. But then what we realize is the hardware is monitored by a different set of people, typically a big Indian outsourcing company, right? And then you have the people that care about the SaaS applications and software performance. And performance for me is always a big P, Scott,
Mhm.
right? And I'll get into that in a second. And so, but the desktop owners, the people that actually own the hardware, don't care about layer 7. So it goes back to maybe what you and I saw 20 years ago, where it's like, well, the hardware is okay. I don't see what the problem is. And then you have users struggling with like a Salesforce application or something like that. But the desktop, the hardware is fine. I don't understand, right? There's plenty of RAM and all that stuff. And so I think the challenge when we throw names like this is, at the end of the day, we're not helping the customer answer a problem. What are you trying to solve, Mr. Customer? Oh, you have employees all around the world. You have 40,000 employees in 15 countries, and their Salesforce experience suck, or that only the North American employees are having good performance with Office 365. That's that's what I'd like to see more, rather than a checkbox. Do you have DEX? What is DEX? I don't know. Is it desktop monitoring? Is it network monitoring? How do you handle people that are in the uh, for example, hybrid mode versus people that are only in an office. It's so many things, Scott, to be
Mhm.
honest. And it's just like sometimes labels create more problems that I've seen than solve issues. But anyway,
Well,
that's me.
tell me how you think Catchpoint solves the issue of digital experience of no matter how you define it. How are you
Sure.
doing it differently to help customers solve that problem?
Right. So one of the big realization that we actually went back to our roots, and we had this big wake up call a year ago, which is at the end of the day, the internet is the new network, right?
Hmm.
And everything is on the internet. And so you have a lot of different tools that do different jobs very well. You have APM that is fantastic, and it does what it does very well. But then that application runs on the internet, and that internet relies on an internet stack of things. So DNS, CDN services, blah, blah, blah. Even a Salesforce uses a CDN. Even a Salesforce is accessed through the internet, right? So you need an internet performance monitoring solution very similar to APM, and that's what we do. Is what we are very good at is telling you where the problem is. Is it on the internet? Is it a DNS issue? Is it a CDN issue? Is it somebody who's misconfigured your BGP? And this is why your users can't access to Office 365 and they're going to China, for example. So our prism or the lens we always look at is the internet. And so is it an internet problem? And so from there we dive into, like I said, the big P for me is the big performance is reachability. Can I get there? Is it up or down? If it's up, is it fast or slow? And then reliability, which is how consistently can you deliver that quality of experience. And ultimately, I think Scott, at the end of the day, it's all about quality of experience. Like QoE, or I mean, I know QoE was used a lot by the network guys in the 90s and early 2000s. But at the end of the day, is we're here to deliver a quality of experience to customers, whether that customer is an employee or a customer. And it's all about resilience. I mean, I think we all learned a lesson with what happened with Southwest. I'm not that I want to drag their name here, but at the end of the day, what you can see from the Southwest example is the fact that there was a failure, and failures happen. And nobody should lie to you that says, I'm going to give you a system, Scott, that never fails. That doesn't exist. Failures are bound to happen. The question is like, how resilient are you? And resilience is the ability to take a hit, take a punch, get down, but then get back on your horse as quickly as possible, right? So monitoring and what we should be doing as solutions that provide monitoring tools to customers, whether you call them APM, observability, DEX, DEM, this, that, whatnot, is can you help the customer get back on their horse as quickly as possible by doing fault isolation?
Right.
Because this is what it's all about. You've been with me for many years around this industry. This is about identifying the problem. And then I try to use the medical industry as well. You need different X-ray machines. That's why you need an X-ray, an MRI, CT scan, a PET scan, because they all give you different layers of visibility into where the problem is. You don't go and say, "Oh, you just need an X-ray machine, Scott. You'll be fine. Trust
Right.
me." No, no, different things. Then the other thing I would add, obviously, to that announcement, and I think it makes perfect sense for Cloudflare to get into that space because obviously there is Zscaler, there is Palo Alto, and they're all trying to offer better access, SASE control, and all that stuff. They have to come up with monitoring. They have to give some kind of visibility to say, okay, it's not my fault, right?
Hmm.
You have to remember some of these tools are bought also to mean time to innocence, right? It's not me, it's somebody else.
I like that.
And
I'm going to
so
use that.
yeah, you can. This is one of the slides that we use all the time is the mean time to innocence. And unfortunately, a lot of people buy tools to say it's not me. But at the end of the day, it's the story of the fox and the hen house, right? You can't rely on a monitoring tool that is provided to you by a provider that is also giving you access. I mean, what are we monitoring? That it's not your fault? I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if I just installed a new alarm system in my house. I didn't go and buy it from 1-800-burglar.com, right? I
Right.
went and got it from ADT because I need to trust the guys that I buy the alarm company, the alarm system from.
So if Mehdi had his druthers, would you rename this altogether? Would you call it something different? Would you put everything in a bigger under a bigger label and just call it monitoring, or what would you do?
For me, this is all monitoring. I mean, at the end of the day, this is IT monitoring. This is, and you need different layers and different tools and solutions to monitor things, right? And again, our job number one as companies in this space is to help customers detect as quickly as possible if there is a problem, where the problem is, so they can get back on their horse as quickly as possible. If you have, and that's literally that's our mission number one. I don't think there is any other mission that we should have as companies in this space. um, listen, I think that's why you have your Nike Jordans, your Nike Air Ones, your Nike Air Fives, right? You need labels and brands, and it's okay. But I think we vendors and customers need to do a much better job at being a little bit uh, um, direct with our customers by asking, what are you trying to solve? What's the problem you're trying to solve?
Yeah, I mean, and in that analogy you just said, some of us just need shoes. If we just had shoes, we'd be okay.
Right.
So,
But you don't want to be like my son who's like, Dad, buy me this 400 pair of
yeah,
shoes, I'll run faster either.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Great insight. Thank you for being on the show again today, Mehdi, and hope to
My
have you come
pleasure,
back
Scott.
often and give us your insights again.
I would love that, Scott. Thank you, sir.
All right. Wow, great interview. I think I've got a little bit more clarity than I had before, but I want to know what you think about digital experience monitoring. What do you think it is? And what do you think the conversation should be going forward? How should we be defining this? Who are the companies to be looking at? And who do you think's doing it really well? Contact me through my website, scottmoore.consulting, or smcjournal.com. There's a link to my profile on LinkedIn as well as Twitter. Love to hear from you. You can also just email me directly at help@scottmoore.consulting. Some of these items of how you connect me are going to be changing over the next few weeks, so pay attention because we're going to go to smcjournal.com connections to connect to me. If you do like this content, it'd be really great if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We would love to have you on that. Clicking like on a video or subscribing helps the algorithm tell others about this program, and it lets me know that I'm headed into the right direction. So thank you so much for watching this show today. I look forward to seeing you next week on the SMC Journal. For this show, this is Scott Moore saying thank you and bye-bye.